The restaurant buzzed with the soft clatter of dishes and the low murmur of weekend conversations. Sunlight streamed through tall windows, painting warm rectangles across the floor and giving everything a calm, almost nostalgic glow. Families filled the tables, laughing, passing plates, settling in for a slow Sunday lunch. At the center of it all sat Maya and her family, gathered to celebrate her grandmother Helen's birthday. Maya drummed her fingers on the table, her green-dyed hair catching the light as she scanned the room with restless energy. She never liked these gatherings. They felt too traditional, too rehearsed, too steeped in old habits she had spent years trying to break. Her grandfather Leonard, tall and slightly stooped with age, approached the table slowly, guiding Helen with a gentle hand on her back. His movements were deliberate, tender in a way that seemed second nature. Without a word, he reached for Helen's chair and pulled it back so she could sit comfortably. He did it with a soft smile, a quiet kindness. But Maya saw something else. She scoffed loudly, crossing her arms. "Are we seriously doing this?" she said, loud enough for nearby tables to hear. Leonard froze, still holding the chair. Helen blinked in confusion. "Maya, sweetheart, what's wrong?" Maya leaned forward, her expression sharp. "Grandpa, she's perfectly capable of sitting down on her own. You don't need to perform some outdated ladies' first ritual." A few people at surrounding tables turned their heads subtly, sensing tension. Leonard lowered his eyes, unsure. "I was just helping her." "Helping?" Maya cut in, her voice rising. "It's not helping when it reinforces ancient gender roles. Pulling a woman's chair like she's fragile? Seriously?" Leonard let go of the chair slowly, as if the gesture had suddenly become something dangerous. His shoulders drooped. Helen placed a hand on his arm. "Maya, your grandfather is just being polite." "Polite?" Maya laughed under her breath. "It's caveman politeness. Microaggressions dressed up as chivalry. You don't need him to do that, Grandma. You're strong. You're independent." Helen's expression faltered, surprise flickering in her eyes. Leonard took a half step back, his face softening into something fragile. Hurt, confusion, maybe even guilt. "I didn't mean to upset anyone," Leonard said quietly, his voice barely audible over the restaurant noise. Maya shook her head, pushing her chair back slightly. "This is exactly the kind of thing we should be moving past. Women aren't props in a performance of outdated manners." The room felt suddenly smaller, the air thick with discomfort. Helen's jaw tightened, not in anger, but in sorrow. She glanced at Leonard, whose hand still hovered in the air as if unsure what to do with it now. "Maya," Helen said softly, "you're misunderstanding." "No, Grandma," Maya insisted, her voice sharp. "I'm calling it out. Someone has to." Leonard's eyes glistened in the restaurant's soft light. He stood there silently, absorbing every word without protest, his breath shallow. He didn't defend himself. He didn't argue. He simply wilted. Helen turned to her granddaughter with a steadiness that cut through the tension like a knife. "Maya," she said, her tone firmer now, "you don't know the whole story." Maya raised an eyebrow. "What story?" Helen looked at Leonard again, a look filled with decades of memory, hardship, and unspoken tenderness. "The reason he pulls my chair," she said, voice trembling just slightly, "has nothing to do with patriarchy." Maya scoffed. "Then what does it have to do with?" Helen inhaled slowly, her gaze softening in a way that made even the waiter nearby pause, sensing something deeper beneath the surface. "It has to do," Helen said, "with what happened the year I almost couldn't sit down at all." Maya's smirk faded. Leonard closed his eyes, his breath trembling. And the restaurant, the laughter, the clinking plates, the background chatter, seemed to fall away into silence. The restaurant noise dimmed into a soft, distant hum as Helen's words hung in the air. Maya blinked, surprised by the tremor in her grandmother's voice. She hadn't expected seriousness, not here, not now, not over something as trivial, to her, as a pulled-out chair. Helen slid into the seat that Leonard had tried to offer her, doing so slowly, deliberately, as if grounding herself before speaking. Leonard remained standing beside her, his posture tense but quiet, waiting. always waiting. Maya frowned, arms still crossed. "What do you mean, Grandma? What happened?" Helen took a deep breath, her fingers smoothing the edge of the napkin on her lap. When she finally looked up at Maya, her eyes held something deeper than hurt, something layered in time, pain, and memory. "Maya," she began softly, "you were very young when it happened. Maybe 5, maybe 6. You wouldn't remember." Maya's posture stiffened. A strange flicker of uncertainty tugged at her chest. Helen continued, her voice steady but touched by an old ache. "I had an accident, a fall, a very bad one. I injured my spine. For months I couldn't sit down without crying." Leonard looked away, pressing his lips together tightly. Helen went on. "Every chair felt like punishment. Every movement felt like fire running down my back. Sitting wasn't something simple for me. It was agony." Maya's arms loosened a little, though she kept her jaw tense. "Why didn't anyone tell me?" "You were too little," Helen replied gently. "And we didn't want you to be afraid. You were full of life. We didn't want to darken that." Leonard finally spoke, his voice cracking slightly. "There were days she couldn't sit at the table at all. I would eat standing beside her because she couldn't bear to bend." Maya stared, taken aback by the rawness in his tone. "I did everything I could," Leonard continued. "Every tiny thing. I'd pull chairs out for her so she didn't have to twist. I'd hold her arms, help her lower herself slowly so the pain wouldn't shoot up her spine." He swallowed hard, and I would pray that one day she'd sit without wincing. Helen reached over, placing her hand over his. They shared a look, one filled with years of unspoken battles fought shoulder to shoulder. "Eventually," Helen said, "after surgeries and therapy, the pain eased. Slowly, very slowly. And one day, for the first time, I sat down without crying." Leonard's eyes glistened. "I remember that day like it was yesterday." Helen nodded, squeezing his hand. "And from that day forward, he never stopped pulling my chair. Not because I needed it anymore, but because of everything that gesture meant to us." Her voice softened further. It became a reminder that pain can end, that love can endure, that he would always be there, before the pain, after the pain, during the pain. Maya's breath faltered. Her chest tightened. Helen tilted her head, her gaze steady. "And today, when he pulled out the chair for me, it wasn't patriarchy. It was gratitude. It was memory. It was devotion." Maya looked at Leonard, really looked. His hands trembled slightly at his sides. His eyes were lowered, not in shame, but in sorrow, as if her accusation had touched a bruise he kept hidden for years. "I never meant to offend you," Maya said quietly, her voice cracking despite her effort to keep it steady. I thought you were defending me," Helen finished gently. "And that comes from a good place. But sometimes, Maya, without the full story, we end up fighting the wrong enemy." Maya's gaze dropped to her lap, shame twisting in her stomach. "I wasn't trying to hurt you," she murmured. Leonard shook his head lightly. "You didn't hurt me on purpose." "But I did hurt you," Maya whispered. Leonard lifted a trembling hand and placed it gently on her shoulder. "Love can handle a little misunderstanding. What matters is what you learn after." Maya's throat burned as emotion churned through her. The waiter who had been pretending not to eavesdrop now stepped back discreetly, sensing that something intimate was unfolding, something bigger than table etiquette or generational friction. Helen leaned forward slightly, her voice soft but firm. "We don't want you to stop fighting for what you believe in. We raised you to think for yourself. But don't forget this, Maya." She waited until Maya lifted her eyes. Not every gesture is a threat. Some are memories in disguise. A tear slid down Maya's cheek before she could stop it. And for the first time that afternoon, she didn't wipe it away. The restaurant's gentle clinking of forks and plates returned, but to Maya it all sounded distant, like she was underwater, hearing life from the outside. The weight of her grandmother's story still pressed against her chest, heavy and unfamiliar. She had walked into this lunch ready for a battle, but instead found herself facing a truth she had never even imagined existed. Leonard finally lowered himself into the chair beside Helen, moving with the careful grace of someone who had spent a lifetime learning how to handle delicate moments. His hands rested on his knees, trembling slightly, not from age alone, but from the emotional bruise Maya's words had hit. Maya stared at him, her mind replaying every detail of his reaction. The flinch, the lowered gaze, the softness collapsing into hurt. She had mistaken gentleness for dominance, kindness for control, memory for tradition. Helen reached into her purse and handed Maya a small napkin. "Here," she said softly. "You're shaking." Maya hadn't realized she was, not until she took the napkin and felt her fingers trembling. She pressed it to the corner of her eye, careful, controlled, trying to hide the crack forming in her composure. "Grandma," her voice wavered. "Why didn't I know any of this? Why didn't you ever tell me?" Helen sighed, folding her hands on the table. "Because we wanted your childhood to stay light. You always carried so much intensity. Even as a little girl, you wanted to fix everything you saw." Leonard chuckled softly. "You once tried to organize your preschool class into a protest against nap time." Maya's lips twitched, despite everything. "Well, nap time was unfair." Helen leaned forward. "Sweetheart, your fire is beautiful, powerful, but sometimes that fire burns things before you even see what they are." Maya's shoulders slumped. "I know." She blinked hard. "I thought I was being protective." "I know you did," Helen replied. "But let me ask you something. Did you ask me if I wanted protection in that moment?" Maya's breath caught. "No." "Or," Helen continued gently, "did you assume you knew what I needed?" Maya closed her eyes. "I assumed." Leonard watched her with an expression she had never noticed before. Soft, patient, quietly proud. "It takes courage," he said, "to admit when your instincts led you wrong." Maya opened her eyes and met his gaze. "I didn't just misinterpret a gesture, I misinterpreted you." Leonard let out a slow breath. "You didn't have the context, and I didn't think to explain it. That's on me too." Helen smiled softly. "Understanding isn't a one-way street. It requires everyone to meet in the middle." Maya tightened her grip on the napkin. Her voice cracked. "I feel like I turned something beautiful into something ugly, and I didn't even realize." Helen reached across the table, placing her hand over Maya's. "And now you're realizing it. That's the beginning of wisdom." Maya swallowed thickly. "Grandpa, when you pulled that chair for Grandma today, what were you thinking?" Leonard blinked, his eyes softening. "Honestly?" He took a breath. "I was thinking about how grateful I am that she can sit down on her own again, even after all these years. Every time I help her into a chair, I'm reminded of how close I came to losing moments like this." Maya felt something inside her twist painfully. "So, it wasn't performing a gender role." Leonard shook his head gently. "It was honoring survival." The words hit her like a wave. Helen brushed her thumb across Maya's knuckles. "You've been fighting symbols, sweetheart. But love isn't always symbolic. Sometimes it's literal, practical, human." Maya's voice came out as a whisper. "I've been blind." "No," Helen corrected. "You've been passionate, and sometimes passion stands too close to the fire to see the warmth." A tear slipped down Maya's cheek, and this time she didn't try to hide it. Leonard leaned forward, his voice low but steady. "The world needs people like you, Maya. People who question things, challenge things. But the world also needs people who remember why some traditions survived. Because they weren't about control. They were about care." Maya looked up at him through blurry eyes. "I don't want to lose my fire." Leonard smiled softly. "You won't." Helen added, "But you can let it illuminate instead of burn." Maya pressed the napkin against her mouth, her chest tightening. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. "I'm sorry I didn't understand. I'm sorry I didn't ask." Leonard reached across the table, his old, warm hand settling on hers. "You're learning now, and that's all I ever wanted." The tension that had filled the room began to dissolve, the air clearing like fog lifted by sunlight. A quiet stillness settled between them, not the suffocating silence of conflict, but the tender silence of understanding beginning to grow. For the first time since the argument began, Maya felt the world shift, gently, meaningfully, as if inviting her to step into a new kind of strength. Not the strength to fight, but the strength to listen. The waiter approached quietly, setting down glasses of water with the delicate caution of someone stepping around emotional debris. "Is everything all right here?" he asked softly, glancing between Maya, Helen, and Leonard. Helen smiled kindly. "Yes, dear, we're just talking." The waiter nodded, relieved, and vanished back into the flow of the restaurant. Maya watched him go, then looked back at her grandparents. The shame in her chest hadn't left, but something else had begun to bloom beside it. Something quieter, something like humility. "I feel like I've spent so long looking for things to fix," she murmured. Helen tilted her head gently. "And you fixed many things, I'm sure. But maybe I've also broken some," Maya whispered. Leonard rested his elbows on the table, leaning in slightly. "Maya," he said, his voice warm despite the tremor still lingering from earlier. "Every cause worth fighting for comes with mistakes along the way. You're human." Maya shook her head. "But I hurt you." "Yes," Leonard said honestly, "but not beyond repair, and not beyond understanding." That simple honesty struck her harder than anger would have. Helen took a sip of her water, then set the glass down with quiet intention. "Let me tell you something, Maya. When I was recovering, your grandfather wasn't just pulling my chair. He was reminding me that I wasn't alone. Every day, through pain, frustration, and fear." Leonard reached for Helen's hand, and she placed hers over his with steady affection. "For months," Helen continued, "I couldn't sit without bracing myself. I would grip the edge of the table, or the counter, or even your grandfather's arm. The chair wasn't the problem. Lowering myself into it was." Leonard nodded. "I remember her wincing every time, and I remember wishing I could take the pain for her." Maya's breath hitched. Helen turned to her. "So when he pulled out the chair, he did it so I didn't have to twist, so I could ease myself down with less pain. It wasn't about making me feel delicate. It was about making me feel safe." Maya covered her mouth with her hand, her eyes burning. "And even after I healed," Helen said softly, "he kept doing it. Because the gesture wasn't about weakness. It was about love surviving something hard." A tear slid down Maya's cheek, falling onto her wrist. Helen reached across the table again, brushing away another tear with her thumb. "You're quick with your words, sweetheart. Quick with your convictions. But today, your fire outran your understanding." Maya's voice trembled. "I didn't know how deep it was." "You weren't meant to know then," Helen said, "but you were meant to know now." Leonard leaned in a little more, his tone careful. "May I tell you what hurt me the most?" Maya nodded, bracing herself. "You laughed," Leonard said softly, not loudly or cruelly, but dismissively, like what I was doing was ridiculous, silly, outdated. But for me, that gesture carries decades. Maya's face crumpled. "I'm so sorry. I wasn't laughing at your memories. I didn't know." "I know you didn't," he said, "but it still stung." Maya reached out, almost instinctively, resting her hand over his. "I didn't mean to make you feel small." Leonard shook his head gently. "You didn't make me feel small, sweetheart. You made me feel unseen." Those words shattered something inside her. Her voice broke. "I don't ever want you to feel invisible." Helen squeezed Leonard's hand, then looked at Maya with warm, steady eyes. "Then start seeing us as more than symbols. Start seeing the stories beneath our gestures." Maya took a shaky breath. "I want to. I really do." Leonard offered a faint smile. "It starts with moments like this. Helen leaned back, studying Maya with the soft scrutiny only grandmothers possess. "You fight for equality," she said, "but don't forget compassion. Without compassion, equality loses its soul." Maya nodded, her voice barely a whisper. "I understand." Leonard chuckled softly. "And maybe next time, sweetheart, before assuming a chair is a patriarchal trap, consider that it might be part of someone's love story." Despite herself, Maya let out a fragile laugh, half sob, half relief. Helen patted her hand. "No one is asking you to abandon your beliefs. Just let them coexist with empathy." Maya drew an unsteady breath. "I think I'm finally learning how." The tension that once gripped the table loosened completely now, dissolving into the warm hum of the restaurant. For the first time, Maya didn't want to win a conversation. She wanted to understand it, understand them, and somewhere deep inside, a small, important shift began to take place. Her fire wasn't dimming, it was changing shape. The sunlight pouring through the restaurant windows shifted as clouds drifted by outside, softening the warm glow over the table. The energy had changed. What had started as sharp, scalding tension now felt like the gentle warmth of steam rising after a storm. Maya exhaled slowly, her pulse settling as she absorbed the depth of everything her grandparents had revealed. She wasn't used to sitting in silence. Silence usually meant she had missed an opportunity to challenge or correct something. But this silence felt different. It felt necessary. Leonard cleared his throat softly. It wasn't to speak, more like to steady himself. For the first time since the conflict began, Maya noticed how fragile he looked beneath his strong posture, beneath his stoic calm, beneath his quiet devotion. She had mistaken that quiet for compliance. But now she saw it clearly. Quiet was where he hid his deepest stories. "Grandpa," she said gently, "did it ever scare you that Grandma might not get better?" Leonard's jaw tightened. His eyes, already damp from earlier, grew glossy again. He looked down at his intertwined fingers on the table. "Every day," he whispered. Helen leaned toward him, gently brushing her thumb along the back of his hand. "He wasn't just scared," she said softly. "He was terrified." Leonard nodded slowly. "There were nights I'd lie awake watching her sleep, just to make sure she was still breathing." His voice cracked. "Fear does things to a person, makes you cling to whatever small act you can control." Maya felt her chest seize. She had never imagined her grandfather as fearful. He'd always seemed unshakable, a steady oak in the background of her childhood. But now she saw he carried far more than anyone realized. "And when she got better," he continued, "when she could sit again without pain, every time I pulled out the chair it reminded me of the miracle she was." Helen's face softened into something deeply tender. "He still looks at me that way." Maya's throat tightened again. I never saw that. I never paid attention." Helen smiled sadly. "You were busy becoming your own person. That's not a crime." "But I judged you," Maya whispered. "I judged both of you without knowing anything." Helen shook her head gently. "You judge the gesture, not us. And that's where assumptions become dangerous." Leonard added, "Assumptions are like shadows. They look like truth until you shine the right light." Maya swallowed hard. "And I was shining the wrong light." "You were shining a bright light," Helen corrected, "but in the wrong direction." Maya let out a breath that trembled. "I wanted to protect you from harm, but I didn't realize you'd already survived so much more than I've ever understood." Helen reached across the table and gently touched her chin. "Sweetheart, sometimes in trying to shield others, we accidentally hit them." The truth of that sentence struck deep. Maya glanced at Leonard again. "You didn't tell me because you didn't want me to worry?" He shrugged faintly. "I didn't tell you because pain is heavy, and you were so young. I wanted your world to stay unbroken." Maya looked down at her hands. "But my world isn't unbroken. It's complicated. I'm complicated." Helen chuckled softly. "Good. Complicated people learn the most. But I don't want to hurt people, Maya whispered. Especially not the ones who love me. Leonard placed a warm hand over hers. Then let today be the day you learn a new kind of strength. She looked up, eyes blurred. What kind? The strength to pause, Leonard said. To ask. To understand before reacting. Helen added. The strength to let love exist without suspicion. Maya closed her eyes briefly, letting the words sink in deeper than any lecture or debate she'd ever had. I think, she said slowly, I've been so afraid of letting my guard down that I forgot sometimes people aren't trying to control me. They're trying to care for me. Helen nodded with a knowing smile. Control and care can look similar if you're only watching the surface. And I was only watching the surface, Maya admitted. Leonard squeezed her hand gently. Now you're seeing the depth. A deep breath settled in Maya's chest, one that didn't feel like armor inflating, but like the first real moment of release she'd felt all day. She wiped her cheek and looked at her grandparents with a softness she hadn't shown in years. Is it okay if I try again? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Helen leaned across the table and took her other hand. Oh, Maya. Trying again is how families stay families. Leonard nodded, his eyes shining. You haven't lost us. You've just found a part of us you didn't know existed. Maya exhaled shakily, managing a fragile smile. I'd like to know more. Helen returned the smile with warmth. Then we'll tell you everything. Maya squeezed their hands, feeling a connection stabilizing, soft, strong, and real. For the first time all afternoon, she wasn't on the outside of her family looking in. She was right here. Present, seen, seeing. And for the first time, she wanted to stay. The restaurant's warm lighting softened the lines on Leonard's face, revealing not age, but history. A lifetime of quiet endurance etched gently into his expression. Helen's hand still rested on his, steady and tender, grounding him in a way that didn't demand attention, yet commanded it effortlessly. Maya watched their fingers intertwined and felt something shift inside her. Something small at first, like a loose thread gently tugged, but beneath it lay an unraveling she hadn't realized she needed. Grandpa, she said quietly, were you always like this with Grandma? Always gentle? Leonard chuckled softly, wiping the corner of his eye with 2 fingers. Oh no, I was a stubborn mule when I was younger. Ask your grandma. Helen snorted. Stubborn isn't the word I'd choose. Leonard glared playfully. Watch it. She only smirked, and Maya, despite everything, laughed softly at their banter. Helen leaned back in her chair. He learned gentleness the hard way. Maya tilted her head. What do you mean? Helen took a sip of her water, her expression shifting into something thoughtful, a little heavier than before. When I was recovering, there were days I yelled at him, days I pushed him away, days I cried and blamed him for things he couldn't control. Leonard nodded, remembering. She wanted independence, even when she physically couldn't have it. Helen sighed. Pain turns you into someone you're not, and it turns the people around you into versions of themselves they've never been before. Maya frowned softly. So you resented him helping you? Helen didn't hesitate. Yes, Leonard said gently, but I knew she didn't mean it. Helen placed a hand over her heart, but he kept showing up, every day, every moment, not because he thought I was weak, but because I was hurting, and there's a difference. Those words sank into Maya like warm, steady waves. She swallowed, and pulling the chair was part of that. Helen nodded. It became the one thing I could accept from him, not lifting me, not assisting me to stand, not carrying my weight, but guiding the chair. That felt like partnership. Leonard sighed, and when she healed, I never wanted to stop, because it reminded me of the days we fought hard to stay together. Maya looked down at her hands, feeling the truth heavy and beautiful between them. I thought I was helping you, she whispered. I thought I was empowering you." Helen smiled, not unkindly. "But empowerment isn't about rejecting everything that looks old-fashioned. It's about choosing for yourself what feels right." Leonard added, "Your grandmother chose to let me pull her chair. It wasn't forced. It wasn't expected. It was ours." Maya inhaled sharply, not in argument, but in realization. "I never asked if it was your choice." Helen nodded. "Activism is important, Maya. Your voice matters. But you must never speak louder than the person you claim to defend." Maya's breath trembled. "I made you small." "No," Helen said firmly, shaking her head. "You made yourself loud. There's a difference." Maya blinked back fresh tears. "Grandpa, when I said what I did, when I mocked you," her voice broke. "Were you angry at me?" Leonard's eyes softened instantly. "Angry? No. Never angry." He paused. "Hurt? Yes." Maya covered her mouth, fighting the sob building inside. "I didn't want to hurt you." "I know," Leonard whispered. "If I thought you did, this conversation would feel very different." Maya lowered her hand slowly. "I didn't see you. I only saw what I feared." Leonard nodded. "And I didn't tell you about our past because I didn't want to burden you." Helen added, "We hid the pain because that was our way of loving you." Maya's tears finally spilled, slow and warm. "And I turned that love into something to criticize." Helen reached out, wiping her cheek with a gentle thumb. "And now you're turning it into something to understand. That's what matters." Maya let out a trembling breath. "How do I make this right?" Leonard smiled, a small smile, but real. "By listening, by asking, and by letting yourself learn even when it hurts." Helen nodded. "And by letting love exist without assuming it's a trap." Maya swallowed, nodding slowly. "I want to learn. I want to know all of it. Every story." Helen squeezed her hand. "Then you're already on the right path." Leonard looked at Maya with renewed softness. "You're not losing your fire, sweetheart. You're adding depth to it." Maya exhaled, a sense of calm washing over her. "I don't want to fight you anymore." Helen smiled warmly. "Then don't. Fight the world when necessary, but hold your family with open hands." Maya's chest swelled with emotion she couldn't fully name. Something like relief, something like grief, something like rebirth. She reached forward and took both their hands, holding them tightly. "I love you," she whispered, raw, real, vulnerable. Helen's eyes shimmered. "We know." Leonard's voice wavered with emotion. "We love you too, more than you know." For the first time in years, Maya felt the sharpness inside her melt, not into weakness, but into warmth. A warmth she hadn't felt in a very long time, and she realized understanding was changing her, slowly, powerfully, beautifully. A soft breeze drifted in each time the restaurant doors opened, carrying with it the sounds of cheerful conversations and clinking glasses from outside. The faint hum of life beyond their table contrasted sharply with the intimate stillness surrounding Maya, Helen, and Leonard. Maya wiped her cheeks again, though the tears kept forming, and for once she didn't feel ashamed of them. They felt necessary. Helen took a slow sip of water before setting the glass down with thoughtful precision. "Maya," she said gently, "can I ask you something?" Maya nodded, her eyes still red. "Of course." Helen leaned forward. "Why did you react so strongly? Not just annoyed, not uncomfortable, but angry." Maya froze. She hadn't expected the question. Not now. Not when the wound between them was still soft and tender. But Helen wasn't asking to challenge her. She was asking to understand her granddaughter, to see the person beneath the fire. Maya looked down at her hands, twisting the napkin between her fingers. "I don't know," she said at first. "I guess I've been trying so hard to be the opposite of everything I grew up seeing." Helen tilted her head. "The opposite?" "Yes. Maya swallowed, her voice unsteady. Growing up, I saw Mom always doing everything. I saw her tired, exhausted, carrying the emotional load, the physical load, all of it. And I watched Dad, coasting, expecting, not offering, not noticing. Helen softened. And you thought that all traditions were like that? Maya finished. That if I let anyone do anything for me, I was becoming the same, dependent, weak, invisible. Leonard's expression shifted with deep empathy. So you built armor? Maya nodded, wiping a fresh tear. Yeah, I built armor, and I kept adding layers, and eventually... Her voice cracked. I couldn't tell when I actually needed it. Helen reached across the table and placed her hand on Maya's wrist. Oh, sweetheart. You weren't wrong to protect yourself, but protection is meant to be temporary, not a permanent way of seeing the world. Maya let the words sink in, slowly, painfully, truthfully. She turned to Leonard. I didn't react to you. Not really. I reacted to everything I've been holding on to. Leonard nodded softly. I figured. Maya blinked. You did? He smiled, a quiet, knowing smile. You weren't looking at me when you spoke. You were looking at something behind me, something older. Helen squeezed Maya's hand. Your anger wasn't born today. It just found the wrong target. Maya exhaled shakily. That makes me feel even worse. No, Leonard said firmly. It makes you human. Helen added, and it makes this conversation meaningful. A silence settled between them again, but this time it was reflective. Not tense, not defensive. It was the kind of silence that allows truth to rearrange a person from the inside out. Leonard leaned back slightly, his voice gentle. Maya, traditions are not all good or all bad. Some are cages, but some are anchors. Maya looked at him through teary lashes. And I treated yours like it was a cage. No, Leonard said softly. You treated it like you were protecting your grandmother. He smiled faintly. That's what made it hurt less, actually. Maya frowned. What do you mean? Leonard sighed. You weren't mocking me because you thought I was ridiculous. You were mocking the gesture because you believed it limited her. You were trying to defend her freedom. Helen nodded. Your heart was in the right place. Your aim just... missed. Maya pressed a shaky hand to her forehead. I don't want to keep missing. I don't want to keep assuming everyone is trying to take something from us. Helen lifted her chin with quiet strength. Then practice seeing intentions, not just actions. Leonard smiled softly. And always ask before you attack, especially when the person loves you. Maya let out a breath that trembled with relief and regret intertwined. I don't want to be this explosive anymore. You won't be, Helen said, brushing her knuckles gently across Maya's cheek. The fact that you're sitting here listening, crying, learning. Leonard finished for her. That's growth. And growth always starts with discomfort. Maya looked between them, two people she had always loved but hadn't always seen. Can I ask you something? She whispered. Helen nodded. Anything. Do you still want him to pull your chair? Helen smiled. Not defensively, not nostalgically, but with complete sincerity. Yes, she said simply. Because to me it means, I'm here, I remember, I care. It's not about dependence, it's about us. Leonard chuckled quietly. And if she ever told me to stop, I would. Immediately. Helen raised an eyebrow. Maybe. Maya laughed softly, genuinely this time. She took a slow, steady breath, the air filling her chest with a new clarity. I think I finally get it, she said. Not all gestures are cages. Some are bridges. Helen's eyes warmed. Exactly. Leonard nodded. And today you crossed one. The weight in Maya's heart shifted, not disappearing, but transforming into something more honest, more grounded, more connected. For the first time since the argument began, she felt something settle gently in her soul. Understanding wasn't surrender. It was connection. The hum of the restaurant blended into a soft backdrop as Maya let her grandparents' words settle inside her, layer by layer, memory by memory. The tension from earlier felt like a distant echo now, replaced by a fragile but growing warmth that wrapped around their table like a quiet embrace. Helen adjusted the silverware in front of her, not because it needed adjusting, but because it gave her hands something to do as she studied her granddaughter's face. Leonard watched, too, his expression soft and thoughtful, the kind of look only someone who loves gently can give. Maya sniffed, wiping under her eyes. "I feel like I've been walking around with blinders on," she admitted softly. "Seeing everything through fear of what it could mean instead of what it actually does." Helen nodded with approval. "That's a powerful realization." "It's also embarrassing," Maya added. Leonard shook his head. Embarrassing would be refusing to listen. "But you're listening now." Maya let out a soft breath. "I think I've been afraid to let anything look traditional. Like if I let one thing slip by, the whole world would slide backward." Helen leaned forward, her expression gentle but piercing. "And has fighting every tradition made you feel safer?" Maya hesitated, then shook her head slowly. "No, just tired. Exhausted, actually." Helen's gaze softened. "Because you're carrying the world alone, sweetheart. And you don't have to." Leonard added, "Especially not when some parts of that world are already on your side." Maya shifted in her seat, the truth hitting her with a slow, steady force. "I never thought of it that way." Helen reached across the table and took both of Maya's hands into her own. "Strength isn't only in resistance, it's also in discernment, in knowing what deserves your fire and what deserves your grace." A shiver ran through Maya, not from cold but from recognition. "I don't think I've shown much grace," she whispered. "You're young," Helen said. "Grace grows with time." "And sometimes," Leonard added, "with the right lesson." Maya looked between them, her heart swelling with a mixture of love and regret. "Can you tell me more about that time when you were hurt?" Helen exchanged a glance with Leonard, a look that held a lifetime in it, then nodded slowly. "It was early spring," Helen began, her voice gentle but sure. "I remember because the flowers were just starting to bloom. I was cleaning the top shelf of the linen closet and I slipped off the step stool." Leonard's hand clenched slightly around his glass, the memory still sharp for him. "I hit the floor hard," Helen continued, "and I couldn't move my legs for nearly 10 minutes. The pain was unbearable. Your grandfather carried me to the car himself." Maya's breath caught. Leonard spoke, his voice crackling with old fear. "I remember thinking, this is it. This is the moment everything changes." And it did. Helen nodded. "Recovery was slow, agonizing. I couldn't sit, couldn't bend, couldn't even lie down comfortably." "And I couldn't fix it," Leonard said, his voice barely audible. "I've never felt so helpless in my life." Maya saw his eyes, wet, blinking too fast. Her chest tightened at the vulnerability of it. "So," Helen said softly, "he did the one thing he could do. Adjust chairs, support my back, guide me down gently. It was our ritual, our way of saying, we face this together." Leonard added, "That's what the gesture still means to me. That we survived something hard, that she's still here." Maya felt her throat constrict. "And I mocked that." Leonard reached out and touched her hand lightly. "You mocked the gesture, not the meaning, and not knowingly. But it hurt you." "Yes," Leonard said honestly, "but pain can lead to clarity. Look where we are now." Helen nodded. "This is understanding, Maya. This is growth." Maya let out a shaky exhale. "I want to stop seeing love as danger." Helen squeezed her hand. "Then stop assuming every hand extended toward you wants to control you. Sometimes it just wants to steady you." Maya closed her eyes, letting the words echo inside her. Helen continued softly. "And sometimes the person extending the hand is someone who spent months steadying me when I couldn't stand alone. That's not patriarchy, that's devotion. When Maya opened her eyes again, she met Leonard's gaze and saw not a stereotype, not an outdated tradition, not an idea to fight. She saw a man who almost lost the love of his life, a man who carried fear quietly for decades, a man who turned that fear into tenderness. And she broke. She didn't sob loudly, she didn't collapse. She simply let the tears fall. Slow, steady, unashamed. "Grandpa," she whispered, "I'm so sorry I didn't see you. I'm so sorry I made you feel small." Leonard leaned forward, wiping her tears with a thumb just as gently as he handled every gesture with Helen. "You didn't make me small. You just didn't know the size of the story behind the gesture." Maya nodded, her voice trembling. "I want to learn those stories." Helen smiled through her own tears. "Then we'll tell you. All of them." Maya took both their hands again, holding tightly, as though anchoring herself to the truth she'd been missing for years. And in that moment she understood with crystal clarity. Her fire wasn't wrong. Her voice wasn't wrong. But her vision had been incomplete. Now, finally, it was expanding. Into empathy, into nuance, into connection, into love. For the first time in years, she wasn't fighting a battle. She was opening a door. Lunch plates arrived at nearby tables, forks clinked, glasses were filled with ice, and life moved on around them. But at Maya's table, time felt suspended. The soft golden light cast a halo over the three of them, as if the world understood the importance of the moment and had stepped back to give them room. Maya felt lighter and heavier all at once. Lighter because truth had finally pierced the fog she'd been trapped in. Heavier because she saw, perhaps for the first time in her adult life, how deeply her words could wound. She fiddled with the edge of her napkin, her voice gentle. "Grandpa, can I ask something else?" Leonard smiled, weary but warm. "You can ask anything." "Were you upset with me?" she said softly. "Or disappointed?" He leaned back, considering the question carefully, as if it mattered enough to deserve no rushed answer. "Neither," he said finally. "I was saddened." Maya's heart twisted. "Because of what I said?" "Because," Leonard corrected gently, "you didn't know the meaning behind what I did, and I never gave you the chance to understand it." Helen reached across the table and squeezed Maya's wrist. "This is what people forget about families. Everyone has a responsibility to explain themselves, not just the younger generation." Leonard nodded. "We hide our vulnerability thinking we're protecting everyone. Sometimes we're just building walls." Maya let his words sink in. "I guess we all build walls," she murmured, "some louder than others." Helen smiled. "Yours were loud, sweetheart." Maya gave a watery laugh. "Maybe too loud." Helen tilted her head. "But now they're cracking. And through the cracks, light enters." Maya exhaled slowly, feeling warmth spread through her chest. "Grandma, can I ask you something too?" Helen nodded. "Of course. Why did you let Grandpa keep pulling your chair even after you healed? You could have done it yourself." Helen's expression softened into something beautiful, not nostalgic, but present, as if she was reliving a feeling, not a memory. "Because," she said quietly, "when someone stands by you in your darkest moments, you allow them to keep their rituals of love when the sun comes back." Leonard looked down, blinking fast to hold back emotion. Helen continued, voice steady. "Every time he pulled the chair for me, I wasn't reminded of weakness. I was reminded of survival, of partnership, of us." Maya swallowed hard. "And I accused you of being dependent." Helen shook her head gently. "And I knew you weren't attacking me. You were defending a version of me you imagined. But the real me, the me sitting here." She smiled softly. She chose that moment. She chose him. That hit Maya like a warm tidal wave. Choice, agency, love disguised as a simple gesture. She felt foolish and enlightened all at once. Leonard cleared his throat. You know, Maya, marriage isn't 50-50, it's 100-100. Some days it's 80-20. Some days one person carries the other. And sometimes something as small as a chair becomes holy. Maya felt her breath catch. Holy? Leonard nodded. Because it's a ritual built from pain, turned into devotion. Helen glanced at him with pride. You see why I kept him? Maya let out a small laugh through her tears, the tension easing like a knot finally untangling. She leaned back slightly, breathing more calmly now. I feel like I've been trying so hard to rewrite the world that I forgot to read the people in front of me. Helen nodded. Rewriting the world is important, but reading the room is essential. Maya wiped her eyes again. Grandma, Grandpa, thank you for being patient with me. Leonard smiled. Patience is part of love too. And learning, Helen added, is part of growing. Maya took a slow breath. I think I've been afraid of needing anyone. Helen raised an eyebrow. And how has that worked out for you? Maya let out a breathy laugh. Honestly, I'm exhausted. Leonard leaned forward. Because independence without connection is survival, not living. Maya stared at him, stunned by the gravity of the words. I never thought of it like that. Helen touched her hand. You don't have to reject love to protect yourself. You just have to learn to distinguish it. And I'm learning, Maya whispered. They sat in silence again, but now it was warm, full, comfortable. The kind of silence that only exists when truth has finally been spoken. Helen nodded toward the untouched menu. Are you hungry? We haven't even ordered. Maya blinked, realizing she hadn't thought about food in over an hour. Actually, yeah, I think I am. Leonard chuckled. Good. Healing requires nourishment. Maya smiled, truly smiled, for the first time all afternoon. And as she reached for the menu, something inside her shifted. Not a breaking, a softening, a healing, a quiet understanding that love could exist without limitation, and kindness didn't have to be a threat. Her grandparents weren't relics of an outdated world. They were survivors of their own battles, and they had earned their rituals. Maya finally understood, and with that understanding, something inside her began to grow. Not smaller, not weaker, but wiser. The waiter returned with a gentle smile, ready to take their order. But before he could speak, Maya lifted a hand kindly. Just a moment, please. Her tone wasn't sharp this time, not defensive, not armored, just human. The waiter nodded and stepped aside respectfully. Maya turned back toward her grandparents, her fingers brushing over the edges of the menu. But she wasn't thinking about food. She was thinking about everything she had learned in less than an hour. Truths that had reshaped the way she saw not only them, but herself. Leonard sat with his hands folded neatly, the faintest tremble still lingering in his fingers. Helen watched Maya with soft, knowing eyes, as though she was witnessing the final piece of a transformation settling into place. Maya set her menu down. Grandpa, she said gently, would you mind telling me more about that time in your life? About what you went through while Grandma was healing? Leonard blinked, surprised by the request. Not because she asked, but because of how she asked. So softly, so openly, so unlike the girl who had raised her voice earlier. He smiled. Of course. Helen squeezed his hand, encouraging him. Leonard inhaled deeply, gathering the courage to reach back into memories he rarely visited out loud. It was the longest year of my life, he began. When your grandmother fell, I thought she was gone. Truly, I've never known fear like that. He paused, eyes glistening, but this time he didn't fight the emotion. She couldn't sit, couldn't bend, could barely lie down. Every movement hurt her, and there was nothing I could do but hold her and hope she wouldn't break before morning. Helen placed her hand over his, her eyes soft, but he stayed. Every day, every minute he could. Leonard nodded. I used to practice pulling chairs in slow motion, trying to figure out which angle made it easiest for her. Which posture hurt her the least? Maya's lips parted, stunned. You practiced. Dozens of times, Leonard admitted with a soft chuckle. In empty rooms, at the kitchen table, at church, wherever I found a chair and a moment alone. And he got good at it, Helen said teasingly. Very good. Leonard smiled, embarrassed. I just wanted to make sure I wouldn't hurt you. Maya felt warmth flood her chest, warmth and a pang of guilt so deep it nearly stole her breath. Grandpa, she whispered, her voice trembling with awe. Your love. It's so quiet. Leonard chuckled again, the sound fragile. Love isn't always loud. Sometimes it's a chair, a hand, a memory. Helen leaned forward. And sometimes it's the discipline of showing up, even when fear tries to break you. Maya wiped her eyes. I thought the gesture made Grandma look dependent. Oh no, Helen said, smiling. It made me feel valued, supported, equal in vulnerability. Maya took a shaky breath. I didn't realize love could look like that. Helen reached across the table, holding Maya's hands in hers. That's the beauty of it. Love isn't a single definition. It adapts. It grows. It shows up in unexpected ways, Leonard added softly. And sometimes, the strongest love isn't the one you can see, but the one you have to ask about. Maya bowed her head, the truth sinking in deep. I've been fighting symbols and forgetting people. Helen squeezed her hands. People first, sweetheart. Always people first. A tear rolled down Maya's cheek, but this time she didn't hide it. She let it fall, unapologetically honest. She looked at Leonard. Grandpa, may I? She hesitated, then said it bravely. May I pull your chair someday, as a way to honor everything you did for Grandma? Leonard's breath hitched, genuine, stunned emotion lighting his eyes. Maya, He swallowed. I would be honored. Helen brought a hand to her chest, touched beyond words. Maya stood then, slowly, with intention. She walked around the table to Leonard's side. The waiter paused nearby again, watching quietly, sensing the significance of the moment. Grandpa, she said softly, may I start right now? Leonard blinked rapidly, moved beyond speech, but he nodded. Yes. Maya carefully pulled the chair back, not in the stiff, mechanical way she had always associated with the gesture, but with the gentleness she finally understood. Leonard stood shakily, then eased himself down with Maya's help. She guided him as if she were handling something sacred, and she was. When he settled into the seat, Maya touched his shoulder. Thank you for teaching me, she said softly, not through lectures, but through love. Leonard covered her hand with his trembling one. Thank you for letting me. Helen wiped her eyes openly now, smiling with a mixture of pride and relief. The waiter approached once more, voice barely above a whisper. Are you ready to order? Maya looked at her grandparents, at the tenderness between them, at the wisdom she had finally uncovered, at the love she had misjudged but now deeply honored. She smiled, a smile full of gratitude, humility, and connection. Yes, she said, we're ready. And as she sat back down, she realized that something profound had changed in her, not just in her beliefs, but in her heart. She had not lost her fire. She had not abandoned her voice. She had simply reclaimed what she had forgotten, that true strength isn't loud, it's listening, it's understanding, it's love wrapped in gentleness, and sometimes it's a chair pulled out with devotion. Maya breathed in deeply. She wasn't fighting anymore. She was finally learning.